Hello and welcome to my first YouTube coding tutorial. Today we will be making a full stack application. It's going to be a to-do app and it's going to be called Awesome To-Dos, and it's going to be built on the MERN stack. So what is the MERN stack? Just a quick primer. So MERN stack stands for M is for MongoDB. This is going to be our database. This is where we're going to hold all of our to-dos. Then we have Express. Express is a framework for Node. And Node is going to be what's going to be our runtime environment. Basically, it's going to start up our backend server with the help of Express. And the R in MERN stands for React. And React will be our front end library for making everything look pretty to the user. And so I have the notes for this entire video from all the code, all the instructions in this Notion app, which I wrote. We have pages of all the code, all the instructions that I'm going to go through today. I am going to post this link in the description of the video, and you can go ahead and just follow this if you don't want to watch the whole thing, or if you don't want to watch the video at all. I will also be posting the finished GitHub project in the description of the video. So feel free to check out the code after in case you get lost or anything. But yeah, quick look through this Notion article. If you go to any page 4, creating our endpoints, you'll see that I have instructions for everything, the current code that's caught up at the moment. I explain line by line what I'm doing in each code. And yeah, I think we're ready to get started. Here's a quick look at what our final application is going to look like. We'll be able to... Right, so CRUD, if you don't know, a CRUD application is an acronym again. So that's create, read, update, delete. So create means we can create a new to-do. Create a new to-do. Read means we can read them, so we can read them all here. Update means we can update, so let's update the status of this to be complete. And delete means we can delete a to-do. So let's go ahead and delete 9001, and now it's gone. So create, read, update, delete. That's the full CRUD app. And any last things I want to talk about? Okay, we're going to complete this app, and my goal is to make it look at least 10% better than it looks like right here in this practice version. We're going to make it look nice. We're going to make it look mobile ready. And we're going to deploy it so you can share it with your friends and family. And I'm going to go through each thing step by step. I'm going to try to explain everything as best to my ability. And yeah, as I'm setting up here, just a few caveats. I am not a professional developer, but I thought it would be nice to share the way I used to code my full stack applications. I don't do it this way anymore, mainly because there's just easier ways to do it. But I really appreciate the way I made these full stack applications back then. And everything, in terms of my knowledge in this, today, I feel like it still carries with me today in my current application. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to create a new folder on my desktop. And I'm going to call it Awesome To-Dos. Can't really see it. Let's drag this to the side real quick. There, Awesome To-Dos. I'm going to go ahead and open up the folder. And I'm working in Windows, so it might be a little different for you. And right here, I'm going to right click and click. Why is there a space here? We don't like this. Let's reach Awesome To-Dos. And let's open that folder again. Okay. Inside this folder, I'm going to right click and click Open in Terminal. I'm going to open up my Windows PowerShell or your maybe Bash or something else for Mac and Linux. And I'm going to type in code dot, and that's going to open up Visual Studio Code in this current folder. All right, so I have my text zoomed in. Hopefully that'll be helpful. And the first thing we're going to do is set up our folder structure. So right now we're in this Awesome To-Dos folder. It's a little cut off here, see? Awesome To-Dos. And we're going to create 2 folders inside of this folder. The first folder, we're going to call it Client. And this is where our front end is going to be held. aka what the user sees. And next we're gonna create a server folder, and this is where all the backend stuff is gonna happen. All of our connections to the server, connections to the database. All right, so if you're following along on the Notion article, that's the entire step 1. Let's jump to step 2. We're gonna create a skeleton for our backend. So we're just gonna get our backend up and running, and hopefully everything works. And again, remember, you need to have Node installed before doing any of this. So right now you can see I'm in my awesome to-dos folder. So the first thing I will do is I'm gonna cd into my server folder. Because now you can see that I'm in my server folder, and I'm going to type in npm init y, and this will create a package.json folder, package.json file, which will hold all the dependencies that we're going to need. And the -y just means answer yes to all the questions it's going to ask you. It's going to ask you, like, what's the author of the project and all this stuff. But I just type in -y just to, because the questions are not that important. See, like, all this name, description, no one's going to see that information. So we have package.json, and everything is pretty much empty. And now we are going to install 4 things. So we can type in npm install. We're going to type in express. That's the first thing. We're going to need MongoDB. We're going to need .env and nodemon. And so express, again, is just a framework for Node, which is what we're using. MongoDB is our database. .env is going to let us hide secret information away from the user. Because we have some private codes that we don't want anyone to see. So our .env is going to let us create secret files. And nodemon is going to let us restart our server after we make every save. If we don't have nodemon, then we're going to have to close the server and turn it back on every single time we save. So it just makes our life easier when we're developing. So press enter. I'm going to install 4 things. Should take a few seconds. If we look at our package.json, now we have our dependencies here. .env, express, MongoDB, and nodemon. So I'm going to create 2 scripts first. So let's delete the script in here. So inside the package.json, let's make 2 scripts. Let's create a start script. And we're going to call this node index.js. And our dev script, which will be nodemon index.js. So the difference between this is when we deploy our application, we are going to use the start script. And while we're working on it on our computer, we're going to use the dev script, because the dev script uses nodemon, which will keep restarting, and the start script will just use node, which will just start the script one time. But that's okay, because once we deploy, we're not going to make any changes because it's deployed now. So let's create this index.js file, and that's going to be our main file for the server. Index.js. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to import express. We just installed it, and let's import it. So I'm going to create a variable called express, and I'm going to require express. For now, I guess I'll close this. I'll just pull this terminal down, like right there. And now that we brought in Express, let's create a new instance of Express. We're going to call it app, and we're going to create a new instance of the Express. Now we're going to create a test route, app.get. Let's just call it /hello. We're going to have a function, request, response. This stands for request and response, but I just write rec and res to keep it shorter. And we will do res.status of 200 and .json. We'll send a little message here saying hello, or hello peoples. Later on, when we go to /hello, we should hopefully see this message. Now let's create a port variable. let's call it 5. We'll set it to 5,000. And we'll do app.listen on our port. And we'll have a callback function. And that's just going to say console.log. We'll open some string templates, and server is listening on http://localhost $ brackets, so we can put in our port. And if our app runs correctly, we should see in our console log server is listening on http://localhost 5000 because our port is 5000. So let's test it out. Let's type in nodemon. Oh, no, sorry. We made a script, right? So let's use the script we made. npm run, and then the name of your script. So dev is the script we made. So npm run dev. Okay, so we have here servers listening on http://5000. I'm going to highlight this, right click, let me click it. Click it. It opened on my other screen, so I'm going to pull it here, and let's open up what we have. So we have here, cannot get 1000 slash, because we are on slash, right? And we didn't make anything on the slash, but what we did make is a route on what? Slash hello. So let's go to slash hello, and there we go. We got our message, hello's peoples, right? So our server is working correctly. Awesome. Okay, so now this is the end of section 2, and now we'll move on to section 3. Now that we created our backend skeleton, let's create our front end skeleton. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this plus right here, and now we have 2 terminals, and I'm going to rename this one to the node one. I'm going to rename it to server, and I'm going to rename this new one to client. So our server is still running. It's fine, you can leave it running because we're going to be using it the whole time. And now our client, so we're in the awesome to-dos folder. We're not in server, but we don't want to go to server. We want to go to cd client. Okay, and now we're going to install create React app. It's going to help set up a React app very quickly for us. So we can type in npx create-react app and then dot. So the dot just means I want to create the React app in this folder. If you put like hello, it'll create a new folder called hello. But we don't want that. We want it inside of our client folder. So we'll put dot. So make a new React app in this folder, and we're in the client folder. Let's go ahead and press enter. It's going to take a little bit. Let's open up the client folder right here. See, it already added a package.json, which we already know what that does now. Let me see what's next. This will take a bit. One of the issues with Create React App is that it's very heavy compared to other frameworks, but it's very easy to set up, so that's why we're working with it. I don't personally use Create React App anymore. I use Vite or Next.js, but maybe that's for a future tutorial. Here I want to really go back to how I used to do things in the very beginning. All right, so we have our Create React App. Oh, look, this looks like it's still running a little bit more, and it should be good. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this .getIgnore because I don't think we need this. I'll also delete this readme.md, don't need decider. And yeah, let's just do that. And let's see, what do we need to do? Let's go to, we can close the server folder here. We can close these 2 files. And I'm gonna go ahead and clear this, so we have an empty thing. And now that we're in the client folder, we can just run npm start, and our React application will open. All right, it opened up on my other tab. So again, I will just bring it over here, and we can close some of this stuff. All right, so this is the basic app that React makes for you automatically. And so you can see here that we have the React running on localhost 3000, and our server is currently running on localhost 5000. So let's go to the source folder inside client. We're gonna clean up some stuff here. Let's go ahead and delete a couple of files. We might have some errors, so let's delete app.test.js. Let's delete logo.svg. Let's delete report web vitals. Let's delete setup test. Let's delete app.css. Let's rename index.css to styles.css. Inside styles.css, let's erase everything and save. In index, let's delete everything below line 12. Let's delete this import here. Let's change index.css to styles.css. And we'll leave this as it is. And let's actually wait. Yeah, that's fine. We can close index. And let's go to app. And let's go ahead and remove all these imports. Let's remove everything inside this div. Let's create a new div. And with h1 inside, which is hello world. If we save this, we should have a plain white screen with a hello world in big bold h1 text. Okay, so a few things I want to do for personal touches. When I'm working in React, I like to use JSX files. As far as I know, for the sake of React, they're the exact same things, but if I know I'm going to be using React components, I like to use JSX. And it crashed, so maybe I need to restart my client. So npm start again. All right, so we're back to where we started. So I like using JSX files. And let's see here. Okay, that's not a concern. And we don't need index.jsx or anything, app.jsx. And one last thing I like to do is I like to write my components. Instead of writing the function and then doing export default, the name of the function at the end, I just like to stick the export default right in front of function. And then delete, we don't need this line. I think it's a little bit more neater. So everything should work the same. Hello world. All right, so following the article that I wrote, we're gonna go ahead and change this div to a main. And we're gonna give us a class name of container. And nothing should really change right now. So, yeah. And that's pretty much it. This is the skeleton of our front end. Actually, one little thing we could do if we want to be a little bit one-to-one, we can say awesome to use. We can put a little title right here. Awesome to use. And that's our front end. That's our front end. This is our back end. All right. Next, we're going to create our endpoints. So our endpoints will be responsible for the front end talking to the back end. So let's jump back to the server folder. Let's jump into, let's create a new file. We're going to call it, what are we going to call it? We're going to call it routes.js. And we're gonna require express again. Express. Oops, not require express. Require express. Let me close some tabs to help with the noise. And we're gonna create a router, which is gonna be a method on express called router. And now we're gonna create four routes. We're gonna do a get to do's route, a post to do's route, a delete to-dos ID route, and a put to-dos ID route. So some of these words might not be one-to-one with what I'm trying to do, but these are key words for a REST API, a regular CRUD application. So get to-dos is going to, well, get the to-dos. So we can use router.get, and we want to do it at /to-dos. And we're going to do a request response function. And all we're going to do for now is just send back a simple message for res.status 200.json, and we're going to do a little message again saying get request to /API/to-dos. I'll explain the /API in a bit. And then we're pretty much going to copy this like 4 more times, but I will do them a little slower. So we'll do router.post. So a post request is like a create request. So when so our post request is going to be responsible for making a new to-do, and our get request is going to be responsible for getting the to-dos. So post to-dos. Made a request response, and close this up. And I'm going to just copy this line right here because it's going to be almost exactly the same. And we'll do status of 201 because 201 usually represents the creation of something. So that's why I want to use that here. And then we'll do post request to API/to-dos. So that'd be the same. Next we'll have router.delete. And this one's a little more self-explanatory. This one will delete a to-do. And we'll go ahead and just do all this and we'll copy the get one because we want to use 200 for the rest of these. And we'll do delete request to /API/to-dos/:d. So this ID here is how we're going to be able to tell which to-do we want to delete later on. And it's just repetitive at this point. I'll just copy this whole thing. Instead of delete, we'll do put, and put just means update, so we can change our to-do from completed to incompleted or incompleted to completed. So put to API/to-dos. Okay, and we can go ahead and test these in a bit before even like making sure everything's good. So this router that we made, we're gonna go ahead and export it at the bottom. So module.export equal to router. And now let's jump back to our index.js. We don't need this anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to import our router that we just made. Require router. Not require router. Require routes. /routes. Okay, so and then we want to use the router. So we'll do app.use /API/router --router. So this is saying at the endpoint /API, use the router. So all of our routes are going to start with API. So they're going to start with /API. So /API/to-do, /API/to-do, /API/to-do/ID. And now our server is still running, right, because of nodemon. So let's go to our server. If I refresh, hello should be broken again. Do we save? Save. Yeah, so hello's does not work because we don't have hello. But we do have API/to-dos. And we got our message. Get request to API/to-dos. The post request, the put request, and delete request, we can't just type it in the browser. So we're going to use this really nice tool called Postman. Let's go to Postman. Google.com. Postman API requests, maybe. Here, the first one, Postman. Let's go to Postman.com. And like I said, I'm going to pretend like I don't have an account. I'm going to sign up for a new one. And let's go ahead and sign up with Google. And I have my account here. And let's create my name. I don't know. Testacat1. What's my role? Student. There we go. So Postman does have a desktop application, but I'll just use the website because it's easier to work with if you're just following along. So we're already here to our workspace and we have collections. So I'm just gonna create a collection right here. And I have a new collection, and let's click on add a request. And let's create a new GET request. So we can just type in http://localhost 5000 /API/use. So if we send this GET request, we should get back our message for the GET request. And we do not cannot send a request to localhost. Okay, so we cannot use localhost on the browser edition. So I would recommend typing in Postman download. Right, and download it for Mac or Windows or whatever. Actually, there's also a VS Code extension for Postman. Postman. I have never tried it, but let's give it a shot. Installed, and we have a little icon here for Postman. And we'll sign in. It's gonna connect to our account that we logged in from the browser. So that's my account. It's gonna take me back to Visual Studio. Okay, so it looks like I can just stick Postman. Can I make it bigger? New collection. All right, so we can use Postman inside the Visual Studio. Hopefully this will work. So let's go ahead and try it here. http://localhost 5000 press send, and there we go. We have our message get request API/todos. We're gonna save this. We're gonna save this for later. We're gonna call this it's called get all to-dos, and let's create a new request. This will be a post request, also to localhost 5000. But again, the difference here is that it's still API/todos, but we have a post request, which you cannot do in the browser. So we'll have post request to API/todos. So that's good. Let's go ahead and rename this to create a new to-do. Next, let's create a delete one. We'll check delete. And if we try to do /API/todos, we should be getting an error, right? 404 not found, because we didn't create API/todos. We created, if you remember, we can close this and this. We created API/todos/ID. So we have to stick in an ID. Right now, it's okay, just give it literally any number, like 23, and it should be fine. Delete request API/todos. Later on, this number will be our to-dos ID, so we can delete the specific to-do. Let's create a new one, and we're going to call it our put request, put. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing, API/todos, and we have to give it an ID again, so 23. Send and put request. So all 4 of our requests are working. And I'm gonna go ahead and close out of this Postman. We're gonna come back. We're gonna use Postman later. It's a really helpful tool. How do I close out of this? Can I just do this? Can I refresh? All right, whatever. Okay, close this, close this, close this. Back to where we were. Okay. So that is all of our routes, and it looks like that is the end of part 4. Next, we're going to get our back end to communicate with our front end. So for example, this message, where's this message? This get request to API/todos. How can we make that show up on the front end on our React app? So we're going back to our client. Back to our client. And let's go to our app folder, or app. And we're going to import a hook from React. It's called useEffect. And what useEffect does is basically it just runs something. At least the way we're going to use it, we're going to make it run a function as soon as our page loads. So we're going to say useEffect, and this takes in a function and a dependency array, but we're going to keep this dependency array empty. Keeping it empty just means it runs one time. And we only want it to run one time. We want it to get our to-dos just one time. So inside this useEffect, we're going to create a new function called const get to-dos is equal to async. We create an arrow function here. Let's create a regular function. Async function get to-dos, and this will do what? It'll do const res equal to await fetch. So we're going to use the fetch API to get our http://localhost 5000 /API/to-dos. We're going to get that response. Then we need to get the to-dos. And to do that, we have to take the response and await the JSON. And then we can just we can console log it. Console.log to-dos. And let's make sure to also call our get to-dos function right underneath it. So we created a get to-dos function, and then we're going to go ahead and call it. Save here. And we have an error somewhere. Oh, I forgot to put some parentheses here. I usually do arrow functions. Okay. Fail to fetch. Okay. So if we see here, I'm going to refresh the page. In our console, we have something called a blocked by CORS policy. So basically what's happening here is that it's not letting us talk to our backend because they're on different ports. So there's a couple ways that we can deal with this issue. What we're going to do is we're going to use a proxy. So the proxy is going to say like, hey, look for /API/to-dos on our React app, which is on port 3000. Look for it there, and if you can't find it, then look for it on localhost 5000. So to create a proxy, we'll go into our package.json inside the client folder. And we can stick it anywhere, so I'll stick it right here underneath private. We will stick proxy, colon, and what's our proxy going to be? It's going to be http://localhost 5000. Comma needs to be there. Save that. And if we refresh, it should still not work, right? So we have to go back to our app, and now we don't need this localhost 5000 part. We just need the /API/to-dos. So again, it'll look for it on the 3000. If you can't find it, then it'll use the proxy. It'll look for it on the localhost port 5000. So we'll save that. Let's close this with refresh, and hopefully we have it in our console. We did not. Unexpected token is not valid JSON. Await res.json. So what did we mess up here? Fetch API/to-dos. Let's go to our server. Little debugging here. Get request to API/to-dos. I think it might just need a refresh. Let's try a refresh. No. Let's restart our front end server. npm start. Fresh. There you go. So you need to restart your React app. So we got our message here. Get request to API/to-dos. Get request to API/to-dos. It's repeating twice because if you go to your index.jsx, we have react.strict mode, and that just runs everything twice. This is not going to be the case when we deploy it. If it bothers you, you can remove the strict mode. But once you deploy it, it's only going to run one time. So you don't have to worry about that. Let's see. So that's good. And now let's take that message. We're console logging it, but we're not really doing anything with it on the front page. Let's go ahead and put it on the front page. So we're going to import another hook from React called useState, and this keeps track of state. So we'll call the state message and set message, and this will be equal to useState. We'll start with an empty string. So message is the message itself. So right now the message is the empty string, and set message will let us change what the message is. So right here, instead of console logging it, we will set a message, which will be todos.msg. Because if you look at this object here, msg is our key. It's an object, right? So message. So we'll set the message to set message, and then we can go ahead and let's put it here. So let's put paragraph tag, and we'll put brackets here, so we can use JavaScript, and we'll just say message. So between this paragraph, a message should show. Save, and let's refresh. There you go. We got our message right here. Get request to API/todos. So now our backend is talking to our front end. So that's great. And just to play it a little extra safe, we can do another pair of brackets around here. And we can say, hey, only show this message if we even have a message. So if we have no message, it won't show anything here. Or this whole thing will not run. Because and means both sides need to be true. We need to have a message, and then we can display the message. Although we're not going to have a message later on anyways, but just a little tip. So we pretty much would do this exact same thing for our put request, delete request, and post request. But for now, the fact that we can talk to our backend, which means everything should work. We don't need to test those other 3 routes. All right, setting up our database. So we're going to be using MongoDB, and MongoDB is a NoSQL database, which means it has optional schemas, which basically means that the data we put in our database doesn't have to have the same shape. Like I could stick in one piece of data that has like ice cream flavors, and the next one could be like basketball teams, right? That wouldn't make sense to put in the same table, but MongoDB lets you do that because it's a NoSQL database. Now we want our to-dos to all look the same, right? Have a to-do message and have a status of complete or incomplete. And so you might think that MongoDB might not be the best type of database for this because the shape is not guaranteed to be the same. But the reason why we're using MongoDB today is because it's really easy to work with for deployment, because they have something called MongoDB Atlas, which is a cloud version of MongoDB. And we're going to be using the MongoDB Atlas cloud service to deploy our app with. So I think it's okay. It's also really easy to work with. So let's try it out. We're going to go to try free. I'm trying to create a new account here. So yeah. And I'm going to sign up with Google again. Up here. And let's sign up for a MongoDB Atlas account. I accept, submit. Welcome. Use your account to deploy a cloud database. What is your primary goal? Build. There. Learn MongoDB. How about this one? How long have you been developing? I don't know. Less than a year. What program are you currently working with? JavaScript. What kind of data will your project use? Do I need to answer this? I do need to answer this. Customer user profile, catalog. Not sure. Let's pick not sure. What application? Not sure. All right, let's pick not sure for both of those. It's not a big deal. And now let's create our database. So we're going to use the free tier right here. Another reason why we use MongoDB is they have a free tier. It's a nice, generous free tier. It's going to work great for our application. Free tier, provider you can leave alone, region you can leave it alone. Cluster name, you can change this if you want, but no one's going to see it. I'm going to leave it alone. And I would just click on create. Got a little CAPTCHA here. Verify. Okay, so username, password. Okay, this part's important, okay? So let me hide this password. I'm going to auto-generate a couple times. All right, so the username, don't worry about it, but this password, just make sure you copy it and write it down somewhere. So I'm going to write it down on the side real quick. And then make sure you click on create user. Create user. Okay, and yeah, so make sure you copy that password before you click on create user. You can change the password later, but you'll have to create a new one, which is a little annoying. And then where would you like to connect from? Just make sure it has your IP address here. And that's about it. And then finish and close. Hide the quick start, go to overview. Okay, now we're on the main page and we can click on database deployment. And our cluster 0, it looks like it's still loading up. But we can start to connect. So let's see where we want to do that. Okay, stay on the screen and we'll come back to this in a bit. So let's go back to our server. So right here, server. And we're going to create a new file in our server. And we're going to call it database.js. I'm going to write what's going to look like a bunch of nonsense. I don't fully understand it myself, but I'll try to explain it as we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to require .env, and then we're going to configure it instantly. So this will let us later on use those secret variables in a secret file because we don't want to expose our database link to the world. So we're going to keep it in the .env file, which we'll make later. Next, we will destructure and import Mongo client and server API version. And this can be required from MongoDB. Remember, we installed that in the beginning. Next, we are going to create a variable called URI. This will be equal to process.env.mongodb URI. So this right here is going to be the secret string that we will have in our .env file. But just in case for some reason it doesn't load, we'll just put a default of MongoDB :// at 27017. Next, we can do const options is equal to a couple of options. We have server API, and we have version will be server API version.v1. Strict is true, and deprecation errors is also true. Okay, and then let's do a let client variable. Okay, so this is the part that gets a little interesting. It took me a while to figure this out. So we're going to create a little arrow function here called const connect to MongoDB. So it'll be an async function. And here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to check if we have a client. So if we don't have a client, we're going to do something. We're going to do a little try catch. Right. If we don't have a client, we're going to do something. And if we do have a client already, let's just return client. Okay. So in our try catch, we'll do set the client to await Mongo client.connect URI that we created earlier and the options we created earlier. So saying, okay, so if there's no client, then we'll set the client to await a new Mongo client. And if there's an error, let's just log it. Console.log error. Format. And we're going to create another function called get const to get the connected client. And all this will do is return the client. And we can export both of these. Module.exports equal to connect to MongoDB and get connected client. So the reason why this is important is because by doing it this way, by only creating a client if we don't have one already, this makes it so that we don't keep on creating a new client every single time we query, which like, for our small app is not a big deal. But it's good practice to use the same client if it's already connected, instead of creating a new one every single time. So it says if we don't have a client, make one, and if we already have a client, then just return it, just bring it back. So yeah. Now let's go create our .env file. So go to server, a new file, and it's literally the .env. And we're gonna go and create a variable called MongoDB URI is equal to, okay, now go back to your Atlas and click on connect right here on your cluster name. I left mine cluster 0. So connect, click on MongoDB for VS Code, and then click on this connection string right here. Copy this, and it's gonna go right here, MongoDB URI. You can go ahead if you want to put this in strings like this, but for .env it's not necessary. So just to show that, I'm going to leave the strings off. And then right here, where it says your password, go ahead and put the password I asked you to copy down earlier. So I'm going to do a little bit off the screen, although I probably will not have it by the time this video is up, but yeah. So just make sure, again, replace this whole thing, including the brackets, with the password. So everything after the colon and before the @ sign. That your password should go there. Actually, you know what? I will just show you. The password will not be the same by the time this video is up. And then right here at the end, if you want, you can stick a name of your database. Otherwise, by default, it'll be test. But let's make it a little proper, so we'll call it todos DB. That'll be the name of our database. Todos DB. Save. Save, save, save. Okay, close this. And let's see what's next. We connected, we made our thing. Also in our .env, let's create another variable. Let's call it port in all capitals, and we'll set it to 5,000. Just to have a little more practice with the .env file. We can use this port later too. And place the password, and then we created everything, and we can stick a console log right here, saying console.log connected to MongoDB, just to let us know that everything went okay. And let's go back to our index.js. Let's bring in two things. At the top, let's require .env in this file, and we'll configure it. And let's bring in that function we just made, connect to MongoDB. And this is coming from /database. We just made this. Ignore that. Okay, now our port, if we change this to 5,000, let's change this to 4,000, right? Right, so now our port's already at 4,000. So remember in our .env we set the port to 5,000. So let's see if our .env is working. So process.env.port or 4000. So if we have a port variable in our env, and if our env is working, we should get 5000. Otherwise, we'll get 4000. Let's press save. And we got 5000. So our env is working correctly. And so we'll change this back to 5000 because just in case, I still want it to be on 5000. And now let's create a little function here. Async function start server. Okay, so here's what this will do. First, it will await connect to MongoDB. So first, it'll wait for MongoDB to connect, which we set up in our database file. And only then do I want to connect to our Express server. So save. Oh, we have to actually start our server. So start server and save. Good. So everything's great. Connect to MongoDB and server is listening on HTTP localhost 5000. So now our server is connected to our database. All right, so now let's create a client or a collection. Let's create a collection for our database to use. Let me see how I want to do this. Get collection. Okay, I'm gonna try this one a little differently than how I did in the tutorial. This one's gonna be a little more simpler, I feel. So let's go to our routes.js and let's make a little space, some space here. And let's bring in get the connected client from, that was the other function we made in .database. So again, that's right over here. And all this does is returns back our client. So let's create a function up here. Const get collection. What this will do is it'll get the client and store it in a variable called client from our get connected client function. Then it'll create a collection on the client with the DB to-dos DB, which I believe that's what we named it. Let's double check. .env to-dos DB. So your database name here should match with what we have here. If you left it blank, it'll be test. .collection, we can name it whatever we want, but I'm going to call it to-dos. Our collection will be called to-dos. So in MongoDB, tables are called collections, and each object we insert is called a document. So we're going to be inserting documents inside of our collection. And just return the collection. So this function will just return the collection that we want to work with. The collection we want to add to, the collection we want to get data from, the collection we want to delete from. Something crashed, let's see here. This should be a colon. Semicolon. Okay, so that's good. And now we can start getting actual data. So let me make this terminal a little bit bigger. And let's start doing one by one. Let's start with get to-dos. So get to-dos, first we want to get our collection. So const collection is equal to get collection. And let's actually make this an async. We're going to make them all async. And do we need to make this async? Let me see. Seems to be okay without it. So we'll do that. And then we'll grab our to-dos. Right now we don't have any, but we'll grab our to-dos. We'll see await collection dot find. We'll send an empty object in here. .toArray. So this will bring back all of our to-dos with an empty array. So instead of sending back this message, let's just send back the to-dos. And let's test it with Postman. So go to Postman. Let's check our get all to-dos function we made. And the link is gone, but we can bring it back. Get API-dos, and send. And here we have an empty array because we have no to-dos right now. But this means that we're talking to our database, which is great. Okay, so let's do this very similar things for the other requests. So let's do a post request. How are we going to create a new to-do? So const, let's grab a collection again. Const collection equals get collection. And let's do an async function here again. And let's do const to-do. We're going to pull a to-do out of the request.body. And I'll show you how that works in a bit. And so we'll create a new to-do. Actually, let's stop here because I think it's important to show this. So let's do console.log to-do. And so we can console.log request.body. Let's comment this out. We'll log the request.body. So open postman in the create a new request. So it's a post request. And let's send it. And so undefined. So our request.body is empty because we didn't send a body. So to send a body, click on the body tab right here. Click on raw. Click on this drop down. Click on JSON. Let's create a JSON object. It's getting a little cramped here. Maybe I'll go full screen on the VS Code. And here we'll click a to-dos. It must be in quotes, and we'll say this is my very first to-do. And so let's send this. See if that does anything. Undefined. So I think I know what the issue is here. We are not able to read this request.body because we have to set up a middleware to help us with that. Okay, so go to index.js and right here under app, because we create our app express instantiation. We'll do another app.use and we'll call in a middleware called express.json. This will let us read JSON objects that get sent to our server. Okay, so save that. Go back to our post request. Press send, and now we have our to-dos object. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to pull out the to-do out of the request body, and then we'll do const new to-do is equal await collection dot insert one to-do, and we'll writing to-do is the same thing as writing to-do. Because if the name is the same as, if the key name is the same as the actual variable, we can just keep it like this, to do. And then comma, we also want to stick in a status. And by default, every to do will have a status of false. So false just means incomplete. We're going to use false and true to say incomplete or complete. And then we're going to return, let's see here. I'm interested in the way I did this, but let's go ahead and send back the to-do. Let's send back status false, and we'll send back underscore ID is equal to new to-do dot inserted ID. So it looks like that new to-do will give me back an ID called inserted ID. And so I'm just trying to send back, I'm trying to send back the to-do that is created. And we're gonna use that later for a live updating on the front end. And let's try this out. So let's go to our post request. And let's create, this should be fine. So let's go ahead and send it. And our server crashes. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. So insert one is not a function. It's because I put a capital here. It should be insert one, like that. Save that. Go back to our post request. Send. Perfect. So we get back our status and our ID. And now I'm realizing that I called this to-dos when I want this to be to-do. And I also want this to be to-do and to-do. So we actually did insert a object into our database, but it's not the one I wanted. So that's good, I can show you this. So let's go back to MongoDB Atlas. And if we click on database right here and click on browse collections, we'll see that we have our to-dos collection. And we see our first to-do here, where to-do is null, because we didn't send in a to-do, we sent in to-dos. So you'll see we have an ID here with the underscore ID key, and status is false. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this and resend a new one. Delete. And let's send a new one and make sure everything to do, save. And this is also to do, and let's send it again. Okay, so now we have our object here. Get back to do, this was my very first to do, the status is false, and the ID is the ID that was just created. So now we can go back to our get request, and we should be able to get back our to do in an array. Let's try it out. So get, and look, we have an array of all of our to-dos, which is just one right now. I'm gonna go ahead and make 2 more to-dos real quick. This is my very second to-do, send, my very third to-do, send, my very fourth to-do. I'll do 5 actually. It's my very 5th to-do. Okay. And then we'll get the request again, and look, we'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a little cramped here, but I don't know how to. There we go. Here, 5 to-dos in an array with an ID, a to-do, which is the content, and then the status, which is false or true. But they're automatically false when we first make them. That's what we set up to do. No pun intended. All right, so post request done, get request done. Now let's do our put request and our delete request. We are going to need, let's see here, anything special? We're gonna need something called object ID, and this comes from require MongoDB. So we're gonna use object ID because we have to transform our ID that we're gonna get later on to an object ID, because it's very specific how MongoDB wants to handle it. So in our delete request, similar to request.body, we can get, well, first let's bring in our collection. Collection is equal to get collection. We're gonna make this async, and we're gonna do const underscore ID will be equal to new object ID. Similar to request.body, we can pull out this ID right here using request.params dot and whatever we named the parameters. We call it ID here. If we call this like test, then this would be request.params.test. Okay, so, and it was a const deleted to do is equal to await collection dot delete one, and we'll send in that object, that ID. And we want to send back the deleted to do. Deleted to do. Okay, so that's good. And then the put request looks like it'll be similar, so, as they all are. So async, it's a little copy pasting here. These 2 lines will be the same. Get the collection from the get collection, and we'll get the ID from the params. But we'll also get one more thing. We'll get the status from the request.body. So we'll send in. Right now we know the status of everything is false, but maybe it won't be false when we send it later. Like maybe it'll be true. So we'll be able to send the current status of the to-do, and that way we can update the to-do to be the opposite of what the current status is. So const updated to-do is equal to await collection dot update one underscore ID and comma set $ set. What do we want to set? The status to the opposite of status. And I think we're missing a parenthesis somewhere, maybe right here. Status. Oh, okay. There's no. This should be an object, not a parenthesis, like that. Okay. And we're sending back what? We're sending back the updated to do. So now we can test this out. So let's go ahead and get all of my to-dos again. I should have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's play around with the fourth one. So let's copy this ID right here. Copy. Okay, and let's let's rename this to update to do. And let's go ahead and make it a put request. We'll make it /API/todos/ the ID we just copied. Yours might be different because the IDs are randomly made. And we want to do what? Okay, we want to set in the body the current status. So we know it's false, so we can just go ahead and say status is false. And we can send this. Let's see here. Sent. Okay, so now if we go back to our GET request, press send, our fourth to do should be true. Yeah. And now let's go ahead and delete the third one. Let's copy this ID right here. Copy. And let's call this, let's rename this to delete to do. Delete to do. HTTP / paste. And it should be a delete request and send. Acknowledge true, delete count 1. Let's get all of our to-dos again. We have first, second, we don't have a third anymore, fourth, and fifth. And our fourth one is still true. So all 4 of our requests work. Our backend talks to our database perfectly. I'm going to take a second here to talk about these queries real quick. So if you type in MongoDB, maybe CRUD operations, here in the documentation you can kind of learn about all of the queries. Insert documents, query documents. So for example, query, let's see, MongoDB Visual Studio. Let me see if I had notes about this in my app real quick. I mean, in my Notion article. Let's see here. Let's see, maybe it'll be this. Paste this. Node quick start. Let's see here, quick usage examples maybe. Yeah, usage example, find operations, find the document. So we have here like, here, await movies.find one. So we can find one based on a specific query. So our query here is like, find the one with the title of the room. And then finding multiple documents. So we can do like, find query. So find query is runtime is longer than or less than 15 minutes. Insert operations, insert document. So everything is in the thing. So we have a document you're making here, title, content, and then we're gonna go await haiku.insert one. That's what we just did. Doc. Insert, update, and replace, delete. The MongoDB docs are pretty nice. Feel free to check them out. These days, when I'm working with MongoDB, I use something called Mongoose, which I probably need to type in MongoDB. Mongoose. So Mongoose is kind of like makes your life a little bit easier, but my goal was to use as little like libraries and dependencies as possible, just to keep things simple. And that's, you know, I just want to keep it as like vanilla as possible in terms of the dependencies and stuff. All right, so let's talk about going back to our application. If I refresh this API slash to-dos, I should get my to-dos here. Yeah, see? All the to-dos are here. And now let's go to, where were we? We queried our, nice, we got all of our endpoints. I believe, yes. And next we will be cleaning up the backend. So, remember what I said before is that MongoDB is a NoSQL database. So if I want to insert something that was not a to-do to my database, like I did accidentally before, I sent it to-dos. I didn't want to send that. If I send like an object with like, name John Doe, age 25, color blue, like I could enter that into my to-dos database, but I don't want that in my to-dos database. So there's a lot of ways to deal with it. We're gonna do some very light like verification to make sure that what we have is good. So let's start with our post request. That's where we insert a new to-do, right? So the good thing is we're only inserting to-do and status. So what we could do here is we could do a little check. So if we don't have a to-do, well, let's write it like this. If to-do is undefined, as is not to-do. If there's no to-do, we could turn res.status 400.json. Let's send a little message saying error, no to-do found. Also, maybe we'll have a to-do, but it won't be a string. So we could check if it's a string, but let's just make it a little simpler for ourselves. Let's just turn it into a string using the stringify function. So for example, if you send it to do and it just says true, it'll turn into a string true. So normally we wouldn't want it at all, but for a simple application, let's let them send a true or a number, and we'll just turn it to a number string or a true string. This will take care of everything pretty much for our simple needs. And then also, let's go to our put request, and we want to make sure this is a Boolean. So we can just check if no status, let's see, yes, if type of status does not equal to Boolean, we'll say return res.status400.json, a little message, invalid status. And that should be okay with taking care of our app. Let's see here. Status 400. Oh, we need to put a return here. If we don't put a return here, it'll keep on going. Return, return. So that's going to take care of our light verification. So if we don't have if our status is not a Boolean, like as soon as the status is 25, it should return. It shouldn't let it go through. We want it to be true or false only. All right, next. Everything in our backend is ready to go. So now let's put it on our front end. Okay, so let's go to our client folder, go to our source, go to our app.jsx, and let's change a couple things here. So instead of message and set message, we want to call it to-dos and set to-dos. This will stay the same. This will stay the same. This will be set to-dos, and instead of to-dos.message, we'll just have to-dos. So remember, this will send back an array of to-dos, which we just saw that from our postman. And so to-dos will be an array of to-dos. So we'll set our to-dos to that array. But in the meanwhile, it starts out as an empty array. Okay, so instead of message, we'll check if to-dos.length is greater than 0. So if we have more than one to-do, then let's show them. And let me show you a really cool trick for debugging like arrays of objects. We can use these pre-tags, and we can say json.stringify to-dos, null, 2. And I think I'm missing to-dos. I feel like I'm missing something. Let's see what happens. I'll press save. Go to our React app. And here we go. We have our to-dos nicely formatted. First to-do, second to-do, third to-do. The pre-tag, I believe, let me just double check that. I could be making this up. Change to a div. Save. Right, so the pre-tag makes it look nicely formatted. So change it back to pre. Okay, so we have everything that we need to create our to-dos. Do I want to do any styling? Yes, I do. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So our H1, we're going to give us a class name of title. Our to-dos .length, and we're not going to use the pre-tag anymore. We will be doing to-dos .map. Let's put it on a separate line. It's going to get a little messy here. So we want to map over every single to-do that we have. And only if we have more than 0 to-dos. For every to-do, what do we want to do? We want to return a div. And inside the div, we'll have a paragraph with to-do.to-do. That will be the actual to-do itself. And we'll have another div here. Inside here, we'll have a button. And inside the button, we'll have a ternary for to-do.status. Remember, to-do.status is true or false. So if it is true, that means our task is completed. So I'm going to copy and paste these emojis. I'll have these in the description, but also the Notion article. So this will be a little check mark emoji. And this will be a little empty box emoji. So if our to-do.status is true, show this checkbox. And if it's not true, then show this empty checkbox. Now let's go ahead and save this. Let's see what we have. Nice. So we have my first to do, empty box, empty box. Our fourth to do is checkbox, empty box. And any more styling. So we're gonna do a couple styles here. Also, if we open our console real quick, you'll see it's gonna yell at you saying each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So whenever you're mapping in React, we're doing a map here. Every child, so each one of these divs should have a key. And the key should be unique, and you shouldn't use the index of the array. But it's okay because we have, remember that to-do, every to-do has an ID, the underscore ID. So we can go ahead and set the key to that. And we'll set the class name to to-do. And the class name of this button will be to-do underscore. There's 2 underscores here, if you're following along. And we'll wrap this whole thing in another div. Format this, okay. And this will have a class name of to-dos plural. So these class names, I'm going to use these to style. So I'm not going to copy the styles I did in the thing. Let's try to do them live. I think it'd be a little fun to do some CSS exercise. So I'm opening my styles. I see this on the side here. And first what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little CSS reset. So CSS has a lot of default styles by default, and I'm going to try to get rid of most of them. So what I like to use, I go to Google. I'll type in CSS minimal reset, and this will be linked in the Notion article. But it's this one right here by Josh W. Comeau, whatever. My custom CSS reset. I usually copy all of it, not the 8th one. So I'll copy all of it for now. Copy, put it right here. And then I hate all this extra stuff, so I'll remove the comments here, here, here. Let me full screen this actually. Here we go. And let's leave it. I'm gonna remove all these comments. I'm also gonna remove this hashtag root hashtag underscore next. We don't need this. So this is the CSS reset. Save that. Let's go back to our app. So it looks the same. Just double check we're importing this. Styles.css. let's check if our CSS is working. Background color red. Save. Yes, okay, it's working. So get rid of that. I don't want a background red. And so this is our reset. So let's call it here. It's our app. And our app will have a container. And then remember, our container is going to be this main div right here. Instead of container, I'll keep a container. So dot container, and we'll give it a max width of 1200 pixels and a margin of 0 auto. So we'll center it. Okay. Then we'll talk about the to-dos list and our dot title. We'll text align it in the center. Our dot to-dos. What do I want my to-dos? I want to display flex direction column. We'll do align items center and gap of 1 rem. Okay. Now for the individual to do, we'll also do display flex. We'll justify content space between. Do a padding of 0.5 rem on the top and bottom, and 1 rem on the left and right. Then we'll do a background color of RGBA 000001. So it's just black with an opacity of 1 or 0.1. And width is 50%. And in font size, we'll make it 1.5 rem. Save that. See what it looks. Looking a lot better. And next we'll have our to-do status. And here we have border none, padding 0, line height of 1, and cursor pointer. We want to make sure it's clickable. And then we can do a nested CSS here and hover, transform, scale 1.1. So when we hover it, it'll get a little bigger. So let's try that out and see. Yeah, see? Maybe we make it 1.15 maybe? That's a little better. And then we want to make it a little smoother so we can stick a transition. Whenever you do a hover, just stick this, always just stick this in 0.2 seconds. Transition all 0.2 seconds. For every hover, it makes it a little bit more smoother. So it's a little more smoother. You might not be able to tell, but it's not like instant. Okay, so we have our to-dos, we have our stylings here, and let's see here. All right, so we can get our to-dos. Now let's add a to-do. So let's create a new state here called const content set content use state. So we're going to create a form, and our form is going to keep track of the content that we want the new to-do to have. So let's put that right above this to-do, right between the title and the to-dos here. So let's create a form, and we'll give it a input, and we want to give this a lot. Create input of type text. All right, we're gonna give this a lot of other attributes. Let's go ahead and put each one on its own line. Type text. The value will be equal to the content. The onChange will be a function that will change every time the user types. So E here just stands for event, but E is like a little shorthand. Placeholder, we can say enter a new to do. And then required. And then we'll have a button. The type will be submit, even though by default, once a button's in a form, it'll be type submit, but this is nice to be clarified. Create to do. And we give it a couple of CSS here. So class name is form. And although the class is the same as the DOM tag, it's always good to work with classes in CSS to keep everything the same level of specificity. Specificity. I'm struggling to say that. Yeah. Class name here too. We'll call this form underscore input. Save. So let's see what this looks like real quick. Okay. Looks okay. You just like on the side. Let's style it real quick. So we'll go to our index and let's not index our styles. Go down to the bottom. Let's say our form, and we'll just say dot form. Give it a display flex. We'll give it a gap of 0.5 rem. We'll do a width of 50%. Margin 1 rem on the top and bottom, and then auto so it centers itself. Then the form input. Get a flex of 1. This means it'll take up all the space that it can possibly take inside of its container, which is the form. And padding 0.25 on top and bottom and 0.5 rem on the left and right. So yeah, and yeah, that's pretty clean. And then we want to give this form an onSubmit function. OnSubmit. We're going to call it create new to do. Create new to do. Let's create that function. Let's do it right over here. Const create new to do. We get a little arrow function with the async. So taking the event. And the first thing we want to do is e.prevent default, and this will prevent the page from refreshing on a form submission, which is what it normally does. Prevent default will prevent it from submitting. And then we'll do a little check here. Make sure the content is longer than 3, just to prevent some spam. You know, we don't want to-dos that are shorter than 3 characters. Although even a 3 character to-do is a bit short. There was the same thing that we did in the GET request. Const response equals to fetch /API/to-dos. So up here we did not pass any second param arguments because by default it's a GET request, but when we're not doing a GET request we have to pass that in. So comma, we'll send some options here, and the options are method post. The body we have to stringify it before we send it off, and that'll be an object with to-do as the key and content as the value. Can we remember our to-do is to-do.to-do, so we need to set it to to-do as our content. And the headers, we want to set the headers to let the backend know what kind of content are we sending over. We're sending over application JSON. So that's good here, good here. And then we'll do const new to do equals to await res.json, and we'll set the content to empty. So we're going to clear the form, and then we're going to set the to-dos. We're going to use the spread operator here. We're going to take all the current to-dos, and we're going to attach the new to-do at the end. So this is a way that we can update the to-dos live on the our website without having to refresh the page. We could also just call the get to-dos function again, but this is a lot cleaner. And then if we have like hundreds and thousands of to-dos, then calling this function every time would be very inefficient. Where here, all we're doing is taking our new to-do and just adding it to our current list. Spread operator is really powerful here. So we can test this out. Hopefully it'll work. Let's try it. This is my first to do from the front end. Great. Res.json is not a function. Res.json is not a function. Res.json is not a function. Oh, so I forgot one big word here. Fetch. Alright. Create to do. And something crashed. What happened now? Let's see here. Assignment to a constant. What is a constant? JSON to stringify. To do is equal to JSON. Okay, so yes, it's a problem in the server. So go back to our server, go back to routes, and in our post request, I'm calling to do as a constant, and then here I'm reassigning it a stringify. But I can't do that because I made it a constant. So make this a let instead. Save. And let's try this one more time. Cross our fingers, hopefully everything's gone. Good. This is my new front end to do. Yay. And there we go. It's live. Ooh. We have another problem here. See, because we set the string, it stringified the string. So it doesn't look terrible, but we really don't want that. So let's take care of that. Let me see here. Yeah, let's take care of that. I believe we take care of it later, but let me see if I can take care of it now. Okay, so yeah, let's take care of that. We're gonna go to our routes, and then we'll just do it here. Type of to do, if it's equal to string, then we'll just leave it alone. Otherwise, then we'll change the string. Let's try it one more time. Will you be a string? Will you be a string? I hope not. Okay, good. So it didn't stringify the string because it checks if it's a string. If it's already a string, we'll just leave it alone. If it's not a string, then we'll stringify it. And we don't need this anymore. Okay, so now puts and updates. So the way we have it now, we're going to run into an issue if we're updating delete requests. And to avoid this issue, so the issue will be if we click on a check mark here, which we didn't set up yet, it'll check mark everything. And if we delete, if we didn't set up delete button either, but let's say we have a delete button right here. If we click that, it'll delete everything. And we really don't want that. So what we can do is we can take our to-do component, which is here to here, and let's isolate it to its own file. So let's do that. Let's create a new file in source. We'll call it todo.tsx, or not TSX, JSX. And let's create a new component, export default function to do, return. And then between the return statement, let's grab our to do right here. Right click, I'll just cut it. And then paste here. And then save. And we'll need to import the to do component at the top. So the import to do from /to do. So we'll replace this with to do, and it's a self-closing tag component. And if we save and save, we'll run into an error because to do is not defined. So right here, we don't have access to do in this file. So we're gonna have to pass it down as a prop. So we have access to do here, to do, and we'll send it as a prop call to do, like so. And we can get it out here with the props tag. And then we can just call our to do is equal to props.todo. Or we can even structure it. Why not? To do props. Now everything should go back to normal. Right, so we're back to where we were. And we're gonna have to give a couple extra things here. Let's also give this a key of to-do.id, or React will yell at us. And let's also pass in a second prop. I want to pass in this set to-dos function for the same reason why we use it here in the post request, so we can do live updates to our app without having to refresh. And that makes it a really nice user experience. Set to-dos, and we'll send the set to-dos function as a prop, and we will call it set to-dos. I like to keep the prop name and the attribute name the same. It makes it a lot simpler. So now I know later to get set to do, I'll just have to do const. I can just pull it out like this. Const to do, set to do, like that. And all right, so let's update our to do. So what do I want to do here? We don't need the key here anymore because now we have it on the outside. And took care of this, and let's see here. All right, so let's create a on-click event for what happens when we click on this button. So on-click, we will create a function called update to do, and this will take in two things. It'll take in the to do.id and to do.status. So we can create this function. I messed up a quote here, like so. It's going to crash because we don't have update to do, so let's create that right here. Const update to do is equal to an async function that will take in a to do ID and a to do status. This will be an arrow function. And what's it going to do? What's it going to do? It's going to create a little const res is equal to await fetch. It gets a little repetitive here, so but here we'll open up some string templates because we want to make it dynamic. API slash to dos slash, and here we're going to send in that to do ID. Remember, that's going to our backend's going to pull that out of the parameters. And because it's not a GET request, we have to say method put, and body will be JSON.stringify status to do status. So we'll send the current status to the backend, and it'll change it to the opposite. And then headers will be as content type application JSON. And I think I'm missing a parenthesis maybe. I'm missing something somewhere. I think I'm missing an opening quote right here. Format. I'm missing one more quote right here. Okay, so we're not done actually. So right here, we'll do const JSON is equal to await res JSON. Or we can say, make it a little more descriptive. We can say, we'll call it JSON. I don't know what it's called right now. and it will say if JSON.acknowledged. So it'll send back an object with a acknowledged variable set to true or false, and it'll set it to true if the update went successfully. So I'm just saying in advance, if it's true, then we'll say set to do's. This is gonna be a little bit of a doozy too. It's not as simple as the spread operator. We'll take the current to do's, and we will. So we have access to the current to-dos by the first parameter, and an arrow function will return what we want to replace it with. So we want to return the current to-dos. We want to map each current to-do to the following. If the current to-do ID is equal to the to-do ID of the one we just updated, then it will return the current to-do spread out, but we'll change the status to the opposite of the status. And if the ID is not the current to-do, we'll just return the current to-do. We don't want to touch it. So it's just basically going to go through every single to-do, and it's going to find the one that we just updated and change the status. And again, this prevents a full refresh, which is really good for user experience. Format. I think I might have missed a semicolon here or something. Set to do is not defined. Set to do. Oh, set to do. Is it really set to do? No, I call this. Oh, it should be set to do's. Set to do's. Okay. And we can test it out now. So check, 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 uncheck, refresh. Yep, everything's good. Our requests are going through. And last but not least, delete. We need to do the delete request. So right here underneath this button, I'll create another button. This button will have a little trash can emoji, which I will also paste in the description below. And this button will have two attributes. A class name, which is to do __ delete, and a onClick function called delete to do, which we will make. And all this needs is the to do ID. That's all it needs. Format, save. And we have to create that function, otherwise React will get mad at me. So const delete to do is equal to an async function. Takes in the to do ID. I'm really going to copy maybe this first line right here. Fetch API / to do method will be delete. And that's really all we need for the delete request. We don't need a body, or we don't need an application date. So this is probably the easiest out of all the CRUD applications. So const JSON is equal to await JSON. And then very similarly, if JSON is acknowledged, then we'll set to-dos to the current to-do, and we will return the current to-dos dot filter. That's my next line actually. Dot filter. Return every single to-do except for the one that matches the ID of the one we just deleted. So we're going to filter that one out. And await res.json. Let's see our app real quick. Let's try it out. So let's delete this one with the bad strings that we didn't want. Let's refresh. Looks like everything's good. There we go. We got full CRUD on the front end. All right. So now we're pretty much done. If you want to skip to the end where I deploy this application, feel free to do so. I'm going to spend maybe 10 minutes trying to make this app look slightly nicer. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. So in our to-do, this div that holds both of the buttons, I'm going to go ahead and give it a class called mutations, which usually stands for things that are not GET requests. And that's really it here. Save that. Let's close to-do. Let's close the app. Let's open up our styles, and let's go ahead and style some stuff. So I want to give the to-do status and the to-do delete pretty much the exact same thing. So let's put a comma here, right? Dot to-do __ delete. Save. Let's see how it looks real quick. Okay, it's looking pretty much the same. That's nice. Look too close together, but we'll fix that in a second. So dot mutations, which holds both of these buttons, we'll give it a display flex, and a gap of 0.5 rem. All right, so that's fine. Now, what are some very light touches I want to do to this app to make it slightly nicer? So first, I'll jump into this website I like called Transparent Textures. I've got a nice little background, so let's just find one randomly. Let's grab here. How about this cartographer? Let's pick a random. Let's pick a nice dark color. Let's do like a dark red. I want to do red. No, let's do this like dark purple. Let's do like a really dark purple. Really dark. Like that. We'll copy this CSS right here. Go to the top. Right under app, we'll stick body, and we'll stick that right in here. I don't have word wrap on. Looks like. File, edit, word wrap. File. Okay, I don't have word wrap. Okay, whatever. Save, format. Let's see our background. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, very hard to read everything, which is fair. So we can see color of the text. Let's make it white. Okay, a little bit better. And now let's grab a nice little Google font. So let's go to Google Fonts. And let's just find, I don't know, Poppins is usually like a go-to. Let's do something, let's do rubric. Rubric. Grab rubric. Something happened. Grab rubric, and then we can click on all the styles we want. Let's click on light 300. Regular 400, medium 500, semi-bold, and bold. And then we'll click on the import right here, and we'll copy this import statement. I'll put it all the way at the top of our styles. Sorry, I went a little fast. Let me just slow down a bit. And we imported this. Okay, so that's our font. We imported it. And now let's use the font by copying these font families right here. Put it right where the body is. Where's the body? Right here. Save. Let's see if our font looks like now. Hope I did not just close that. I did not. Okay. So it looks a little nicer. All right. Okay. I think we are going to keep it a little bit more minimal. So we got to fix these buttons a bit. I don't really like how these buttons look. It's because they have a background. Let's stick with this title first. So let's jump to the title right here. And let's give it some padding. Padding, let's do 0.5 RAM on the top and 0 on the left and right. Right, 1 RAM on the top and bottom. 2 RAM. 3 RAM. Font size, let's do 3 RAM. The padding on the bottom doesn't need to be that much. Let's do 1 RAM. Okay, awesome to use. Can we make it a little nicer? Okay, I think that's okay. And then let's jump. We're gonna do the form last, and then let's jump to these to-dos. These buttons are really bugging me. Let's try maybe background none. Yes, okay, that's perfect. And color, this color effect, let's see. Okay, that's nice. Okay, very clean. Let's make the gap a little bit bigger. Let's make the gap between these 0.75 maybe. Okay. To do this, the font looks a little bit too big. Let's make 1.25. Okay. Maybe 1.4. Okay. Let's stick some padding on each to do. Oh yeah, padding. Let's make the padding 1 rem 1.25. Okay, and then let's change the background color to a white. Instead of a black, like that. Okay, let's give it a border radius of maybe 20 pixels. Those are rems. 1 rem. That's nice, okay. Let's give it a nice little hover. So, and hover, we will do a background color of the exact same thing, but just 0.2. Let's see how that looks. Nice. And then we'll give it a transition of all 0.2 seconds for every hover we have. Very nice. And then did I give a transition to the buttons? I did not. I did. Okay. I don't like how the status is so much smaller than the. So maybe I'll just do dot to do status dot to do delete. Let's see. Is it the font size? Let's try font size 1.75 rem. Okay, that's nice. Okay. We gotta make them both 1.6 rem. Font size 1. Okay, that's nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, let me check this form a little bit. This form could use some beefing up. So the form is here. So the form input and the form button. Let's give it a little. I need a class. So right here. Class name is equal to form button. Okay, so form button. Border none. Background color RGBA. Let's try. I don't know. Let's try this. No, let's do 9 maybe. 7.5. I'm not you want to do this color at all. Okay, leave it alone for now. Cursor needs to be a pointer. Okay, perfect. On a hover, we'll do a background color of. We should grab the background color of the wallpaper. Let's grab this. I'll change the RGBA. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, and hover. Ooh, that's a little too dark. I kind of want to make this the default color. Font inherit. Okay, that did not work. Text inherit, text inherit. No, okay, so color needs to be white. Okay, let's do a border radius 0.25 rem. The color I think should be a little lighter, honestly. Try 0.7. That's not bad. Okay, let's keep it like that. Transition, all 0.2 seconds. And let's do it this, I want to round it to border radius 0.25 rem. Border none. Outline none. Focus and focus and hover. Let's do the background color, RGBA. Let's try this one. Just a nice light black. Let's do zeros actually. Okay, maybe not. .75. 0.8. That's okay. Let's do 0.9. It's not obvious though. Okay. I want to create the padding here a little bit. Create to do and enter need to do. I think this is okay. I might just do one last 8.5 right here. Save. Okay, it's fine. I think it looks good. This is my final to do before I deploy. There you go. Refresh, everything should be good. All right, now let's, before we deploy, I want to see if it's mobile already. So let's go ahead and let's bring it to the iPhone 12 and let's just look at this. I see, let's bring it to a 420 width right here. 420. That'll be my breakpoint. So at 420, as you can see, it doesn't look the best. So let's change what's going on at 420 pixels. So some very light mobile. So let's go to, let's at the bottom. So at media max width 420 pixels. What do we want to do? The title, we'll make it a little bit smaller. So right now it's at 3 RAM. We'll make it 2.5 RAM. 2.5 RAM. Save. And media max width. Oh, I'm just writing font size. All right, there you go. The to-dos. The form seems a little tricky, so I'm going to wait on that for a second. The to-dos, the to-do is a width, for the width, we'll make it 90%. The to-do, width will be 90%. And we'll make the font size a little bit smaller. So right now it's at 1.4, let's make it 1.2 RAM. Font size 1.2 RAM. Okay, a little bit better. And then this form, what's up with this form? Why is it like this? Oh, I know why. So here, let's make this 100. Let's make it like 99, 98%, and 95%. Okay, and then same thing with the form. Dot form, we'll get the width 95%. Width 95%. That should be good. So it's not perfect at everything, but it's a nice simple fix for mobile. On the iPhone 12, it'll look like this. On the Pixel 5, it'll look like this, and on the Galaxy S8 Plus, it'll look like this. So that's nice. It's a very, very simple media queries. All right, let's deploy. So we're gonna deploy with something called render. All right, so let's go to render. I think it's render.com. Yes, okay. We're gonna deploy with render, and just one caveat to render is that one good thing is that it's free. Okay, and one not bad thing for such a small project is that if you don't go to your website actively, the server is just gonna shut down. But all you have to do is just go back to your website, wait like a minute or two, and it'll start back up. For a simple to-do app, just for the sake of deploying it and sharing it with your friends, I think that's fine. It's free. You really can't complain these days when there's not a lot of free services like this. And it's very, very easy to use. So let's deploy our app, shall we? So let's go ahead and close out this server in the terminal. Let's go ahead and close out the client. We don't need these. Okay, so we have to do two things. As you saw before, we're working on two different ports, a client port and a server port. But when we go to production, we could do it that way. We can deploy them separately and then have them talk to each other. But if we just work on one port, that would be a lot nicer. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right. So let's close the server folder for a second. Let's stay in the client folder. And we're gonna go to package.json. And if you'll see here in the scripts that React made for us, they have a build script. So we're going to go and run that in the client folder. npm run build. Actually, I made a little mistake, so let's actually go ahead and just delete the build folder. We're going to do it again in a second, but we forgot to make two things a little nicer for our application. Go to public and open up index.html, and let's scroll down to title, and let's just change our app to title. Instead of saying React app, let's call it awesome title. Save. And then let's also replace this little icon up here for the React icon, something that's our own. So maybe you go to like font awesome icons to PNG, type that in. Font awesome icons to PNG. It should be the first link. Let me save this link and I'll post it in the Notion article with everything else. We hit about 2 hours here and we're almost done though. Maybe about 10 more minutes. Alright, so Font Awesome is an icon library, but this website, I don't know who made it, but you can just search for an icon. And we're going to use it as a favicon. So let's just find something, I don't know, list. 1, 2, 3. Sure, let's just take this. Icon size, make it, I don't know, 300. Let's make 500. And we'll change the color. We're using these black, I'm using this black Chrome tab, so I'm just going to keep it white. I think it's easier to read. It might not look good, but it's better than the React icon. So press download. Find where your awesome to-dos folder is, your client folder, your public folder, and just save it right in here. I'm just going to call it to-dos logo. Save that. Close. Okay, let's go back to our app. And right where it says Apple Touch icon, I think. No, right here. Relation icon. Here, let's type in what we want. Let's type in to-dos logo.png. This should work, but let's just double check by doing npm run dev again. Oh, sorry, not npm run, npm start. And yeah, our icon's here, nice. And we have no to-dos because we turned the server off. So that's good. All right, now close out of the React, clear it up, do npm run build. Okay, it's building in this build folder. Let's give it a few. Okay, it's done. So now take this build folder and just drag it into your server folder. Okay, so now our build folder should be in our server folder. And now, as of right now, we don't need to touch this client folder for the rest of today. Or for the rest of the tutorial. We're going to only work in the server folder. Open up index.js and let's go ahead and change some stuff. So we're going to import something called pat, which will keep track of our directories so we can get the right pat name. This is built into Node. And then we're going to, right above the router, we're going to put a little code here. App.use, we're using another middleware called express.static. And then we'll use the pat.join dir name, which is the directory name, comma, this build folder. Okay, parenthesis, right. So pat.join and combined with the dir name will allow us to make sure that we are targeting this build folder no matter if we're doing it locally or on render or something else. So we're gonna serve the build folder. And where are we gonna serve it? App.get. Oh, so if you want to open up the build folder real quick, it just has all that React code is just in here now. It's this is all your React code, all jumbled up and built together. The reason why we didn't do this in the beginning is because we'd have to rebuild every single time we made a change. So we decided to finish the app first and then build. So app.get at the / route, which is our home page, we'll do request, response, and we'll do res.send file, pat.join again, dir name, and we want to serve up in the build folder the file called index.html. That's going to be what's served on our home page. All right, so go ahead and even close out the client terminal. Back in the server terminal, let's just run npm. So we finished everything, right? So instead of npm run dev, do npm start. So this is what everything should look like in our deployed version. So let's see if everything works out. Okay, let's go to localhost. And it might open on a different computer, so let's go here. Localhost 5000. And boom, everything is exactly how you want it. Let's try updating something. Refresh. Good, still updated. I think our website looks really clean and simple. Okay. Next, we want to set up a GitHub. So if you don't have an account, make an account at github.com. Okay, pause the video, make an account at github.com. And let's create our repository for this project. So click on create new repository, and I'm just gonna call it whatever you want. I'm just gonna call it awesome to do's YouTube. You can leave everything else blank and just press create repository. Okay, we're gonna need this screen in a little bit, but for now just leave it alone. And come back to, let me close out the server. Come back to your terminal and go back to the awesome to-dos folder. Get out of the server folder, cd ... Go back to the awesome to-dos folder, so your main route folder. And make sure you have Git installed. So you can check out Google Git, install Git for Linux or Mac or Windows. You install Git, okay, before continuing. And so Git's going to help us keep all of our data in a repository online so we can download on different computers, but also so Render can pull from it and deploy it. So after you install Git, you want to run the following. Git init. Okay, so now we create a Git repository in this folder. See, everything is green, which means everything is ready to be added to our Git repository. But we don't want to add everything to our Git repository. So that's why we're going to create a special file called .gitignore. And there's a couple files we don't want GitHub to have. All right, and that's going to be the following. The star, so every folder that has node modules in it. So remember we had these node module folders, which I didn't talk about, but this is where all of our dependencies that we installed are in. We don't need to upload those because they're going to be reinstalled anyways. And they're really big files. And also .env. So wherever you have .env, that too. If you notice, once you save this file, they'll gray out, which means gitignore is now aware that this is not green for some reason. I'm going to go in and reopen my VS Code just real quick, see if anything happens. I believe it's because Create React App made a Git repo for the React app itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to awesome to-dos, we're going to go to client, and inside the client folder, delete this .git folder and delete this .gitignore. And then we'll save it. And everything should go back there. So do that. So now it should be, the node modules in client and server should be grayed out, and the .env and server should be grayed out. Okay, so now we're ready to add this to our GitHub. So you can type in here git status, and we'll see that these three files are red, which means they're waiting to be committed. So let's go ahead and do that. So git add dot. So git add dot will add every single file that we see here. Clear. Do git. I'll make the terminal a little bigger. Git status again. We'll see that all these files are ready to be committed. They're all green now, so it's clear. And we'll do git commit -m stands for message. We have to put a message. So I'm gonna write initial commit. Git commit m. So everything's committed. And let's do git status again. On branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Yours might say on branch main. Just pay attention to that if it's master or main. Okay. And now, if it's your first time using Git, you might have to configure it and set up your email and password. Just follow the instructions that you see on the screen, and then come back and do git commit again. Okay. Now let's go back here, and we want to copy a couple of lines here. Honestly, just copy. I think if you just copy this, you should be good. Let's try it out here. Copy this whole thing. Push existing repository from the command line. And then paste it. And then press enter. Let's see if that worked. Refresh. There you go. Now all of our files are on the GitHub. Now let's check. Open my server. I don't see a .env. I don't see node modules. So everything went good. If you actually push your env and node modules, you should delete them. You don't want anyone to have your env because that has your server string and password. Okay. Let's see here. Did we? Yeah. It looks like it pushed to the main branch, but it doesn't matter as long as it's all pushed to the main or master branch. Okay. Let's go to render. Ready to deploy. Get started. I'm gonna sign in with my Google account. And complete sign up. Send me a verification email. I'm gonna go deal with that. Verify my account. go here. Okay, so verify my account. They want, what do I call you? I don't know. Call me Testocut. Call me Testocut1. Testocut1. How you primarily use Reddit for personal use? What type of products are you building? Web apps? Are you starting a new project or moving an existing project? Starting a new project. Continue. Okay, so now we're on render. At the top, we're click on New. Click on Web Service. Click on Build and Deploy from a GitHub repository. Connect to GitHub or GitLab repository. Click Next. Then click on Connect GitHub. The GitHub ID that's belongs to an existing render user. Please log in to GitHub with a different username. Okay, so I actually have GitHub connected to a different repository. Can I remove it? No, I cannot. Okay, I'm gonna log into my main account then. 1 second, let me pull it to the side. Okay, so I hope that's okay. The dashboard. Click on New. Click on Web Service. Okay. Build and deploy from a GitHub repository. Next. You might have to configure your account, so click on Configure your account. Find your name. And click on render your permissions on your GitHub account. And then click on only select repositories and select the one we just made. So I'm going to type in awesome to do's YouTube. All right, awesome to do's YouTube. Click on that. Then click on save. Okay. And now click on, now we have it here. We can click on connect. Okay, so now we can do some deploying stuff. Let's give it a name. I'm going to call it Awesome To-Do's app. It's already used up. Awesome To-Do's YouTube. Okay. Region, keep whatever you want. Branch, I'm using my main branch. Root directory. Here, because we uploaded our entire folders, we only want to serve the server folder, so just click on server. Type in server here. Okay. Node, you can leave server on. Server. A build command was type in npm install, and then start command is npm start. Okay, scroll down. We're on the free tier. Then if we don't click on create, do not click on create web service. Click on advanced. Click on add environment variables. Okay, we're gonna add 2 environments here. From your env file, copy the MongoDB URI. Copy the connection string there, and then key, the second one, we don't care about the port, you leave the port alone. We want to change our version of node, so we're going to type in here node version like that, and then 18.18.0. okay, so that should be good. And then create web service. Okay, it's going to build, but it's probably going to fail because here's what we have to do now. Scroll up to the top. It's going to be building over here, but ignore it for now. Scroll to the top. You see where it says connect? These 3 IPs, we need these 3 IPs. So just make a new tab. Go to your MongoDB Atlas collection. Sign back in. Let's go back here. Go to MongoDB Atlas. Okay, go to your database. Sorry, go to network access under security. Click on add IP address and add each one of these IPs. Click the first one, copy. Yeah, click the first one, copy, paste, confirm, next. Copy, add IP address, paste, next. Connect, add IP address, copy, and paste, and confirm. Wait for these to all be active. I wonder if we have to do that. Okay, so it looks like everything's good. It says live, and we can go ahead and click on. The logs are not showing up. It's kind of weird. Let's give it one more refresh. But yeah, I said to cross your fingers before I clicked the link, but it's too late now. Spin, spin, spin. Click on this link, and here we go. Nice little title, nice little icon. Here's our little app. Pull it up on your phone. It'll look okay. It'll look okay. Nice little hover effects. Finish deploying the app. Boom, there it is. Let's go ahead and delete it. Let's delete 3 to-dos. 1, 2, 3. Let's check this. Let's refresh. Everything looks great. See, connect to MongoDB. This is like our console. Connect to MongoDB. Server listening on port 10,000. That's the default port, but it doesn't matter because they give us a link here. And your service is live. Awesome. And yeah, this is the end. I'm not going to drag this out a little longer. It's already been 2.5 hours. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. Check out the Notion article. I put a lot of effort into it. I'll be sure to add the GitHub repo as well to the description. All the emojis, all the links down below. Side note, I'm also looking for a job, entry-level job. If anyone's recruiting or anybody knows somebody, feel free to reach out. My LinkedIn will be down below. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. I had a lot of fun making this. I think our app looks nice and clean and simple. And yeah, thank you. Have a good day.